Hello, this is AFK Newsroom, and I am Dr. Ajaz, your host. In today's program, we are going to discuss and analyze the US economy and cost of living. What's really happening in American households right now? Gas is more expensive than it was a year ago. Groceries cost more than they did a year ago. Rent is more than it was a year ago. And for millions of Americans, wages are simply not keeping up. Tonight we are going to talk about the economy not as a collection of charts and percentage percentage points, but as the lived experience of American families trying to stretch their dollars, hold on to their jobs, and buy or rent a home and plan for a future that keeps feeling further away. We are going to give you the real numbers, the ones that show up in your gas tank and your grocery receipt, not just in a government press. Not just in a government press release, and we are going to tell you what's driving them, what Washington is doing about, and what might be coming next. Uh, Inflation is back up. If simply we summarize about households and living conditions of American people, inflation is back up, and let's start with the number that drives everything else. The inflation rate, according to data from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics released on June 10th, the annual inflation rate in the United States reached 4.2% for the 12 months ending in May 2026. That is up from 3.5% in April, and it marks the third consecutive monthly acceleration in headline inflation. To put that in context, the inflation rate in 2025 was 2.7% for the full year. We had been making progress. Now we are moving backward, and the reason is not complicated. Energy costs jumped 23.5% year over year in May, and gasoline alone soared 40.5%. According to US Bureau of Labor Statistics CPI report June 10th, 2026. The Iran war is not dominant driver. The Strait of Hormuz, which carries roughly 20% of the world's crude oil, was effectively shut down beginning in early March 2026 after the US and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury. Energy prices surged, and those higher energy costs rippled through the entire economy in the price of shipping, manufacturing, food production, and nearly every good that gets put on a truck and driven to a store near you. Uh, as there is no economic indicator more visible, more visceral, and more immediate than the price of gasoline. Americans see it every single day on bright digital signs on every street corner, and right now what they are seeing is a 40.5% increase from where prices were a year ago. The Iran conflict caused the most severe energy supply disruption in modern history, according to the International Energy Agency. When the Strait of Hormuz was closed, oil markets panicked, prices above $120 a barrel fed directly into gasoline prices at American pumps since the memorandum of understanding was signed on June 17th, and the strait has partially reopened, oil prices have retreated to around $78 a barrel, still roughly 7% higher than before the war began. So, yes, gas prices have come down from their peak, but they are not back to where they were. Now let's talk about food. Uh, because while energy is the headline, it is the grocery bill where Americans feel the long accumulation of inflation most personally. According to the USDA Economic Research Service, food prices in May 2026 were 3.1% higher than a year before. Food away from home, meaning restaurants, fast food, and takeout, was up 3.5%. Groceries at the store are projected to rise 2.8% for the full year. But some specific items are telling a stronger story. Farm level wheat prices jumped 31.2% in May compared to a year earlier, driven by a large projected decline in US wheat output. Fresh vegetables are up 11.9% year over year. Fuel oil prices are up 58.9%, which feeds directly into distribution and cold storage costs. And then there are eggs. Retail egg prices rose 21.9% in 2025 after rising 8.5% in 2024. The good news: USDA projects a 30.4% decline in egg prices for 2026 as production recovers from the avian flu crisis. But many households have not felt that relief yet. Here's a cost of living figure that doesn't always mark the front page. Utilities: Americans are now paying an average of $265 a month in utilities, a 12% increase from last year. According to a report from the Century Foundation, the average household is expected to pay 909 and $95 on home heating this corner winter, a 9.2% increase from last year. Add it up: higher gas, higher food, higher utilities, higher rent for a working class American family. The compound effect of all of these pressures simultaneously is not a statistic. It is a monthly budget that doesn't balance. Here is the genuinely food news in today's economic picture. The job market is holding up. The US economy added 172,000 jobs in May, significantly beating economists' expectations of around 80,000. It was the third consecutive month of job gains. The unemployment rate held steady at 4.3%, matching April's figure and remaining within the narrow range of 4.3 to 4.5% it has occupied since July 2025. Job openings rose to 7.6 million in April, up from 6.9 million in March, and roughly 520,000 higher than at the same time last year. Initial jobless claims for the peak ending June 20th came in at 215,000, down 12,000 from the prior week. By those raw numbers, the labor market looks resilient. Now, Now, here is the uncomfortable truth beneath those solid job numbers. Average wages in May were up just 3.4% from a year ago. Inflation in May was 4.2%. Do the math. Workers are getting paid more, but prices rising faster. In real terms, in actual purchasing power, American wages fell in May. Workers are running, but the cost of living is running faster. The Economic Policy Institute put it plainly after the May jobs report. Uh, Nominal wage growth continued to decelerate further, exacerbating affordability as prices rise. It's very likely, given recent trends, that real wages will continue to fall, and workers and their families will find it increasingly difficult to make ends meet, according to EPI senior economist Alice Gold, June 2026. Who is getting hired? Then the question is, if there are so many jobs announced in May, then the question is, who is getting hired and who is being left out? Many job gains were concentrated in leisure and hospitality, which added 48,000 positions. Restaurants, bars, hotels leading the way, along the local government and healthcare. Financial activities decline. The demographic picture is uneven. The teenage unemployment rate sits at 14.7%. Black unemployment is 6.6%, nearly double the overall headline rate of 4.3%. Hispanic unemployment is 5%. Adult women are at 3.8%. These disparities are a reminder that the aggregate unemployment figure obscures very different labor market realities for different communities. Long term unemployment is also a growing concern. The number of people unemployed for more than 6 months rose by 524,000 over the past year and now accounts for more than one quarter of total unemployment. The labor force participation rate sits at 61.8%, its lowest level since October 2021, suggesting some workers have stopped looking entirely. The housing market in 2026, it is a study in very frustration. If there is one word that sums up the American housing market right now, it is this: stuck. Potential buyers can't afford to buy. Sellers who locked in pandemic era mortgage rates at 2 or 3% don't want to sell and take on a new mortgage at 6.5%. And builders are sitting on the highest unsold finished inventory since January 2010, and rents remain elevated for those who can't or won't buy. The average 30-year fixed mortgage rate today is approximately 6.5%, up from around 5.98% in late February. Before the Iran war pushed inflation and bond yields higher, the Mortgage Bankers Association project rates will average 6.5% through 2026 and 2027 and 2028. That is a far cry from the sub 3% rates that were available in 2021, rates that set expectations for an entire generation of would-be homeowners and created the affordability crisis we are still living through today. Here's the structure problem in plain English. In 2021, millions of Americans refinanced or bought homes at mortgage rates between 2 point, I'm sorry, between 2.5 and 3.5%. Today, with rates at 6.5%, selling that home and buying another one would effectively double or triple their monthly mortgage payment. So they are not selling. That keeps supply low, which keeps prices elevated, which keeps first time buyers locked out. And here's a wrinkle that rarely gets enough attention: an outdated capital gains tax structure from 1997 may be discouraging up to 13.1 million house owners from selling because they face large tax bills on homes that have appreciated significantly. The median home price nationally is now approximately 419,000, compared to about 129,000 in 1997 when the current exclusion limits were set. In a May 2026 survey, nearly two-thirds of would-be home buyers said they were waiting for mortgage rates to fall before buying. Here's the sobering reality: the same percentage said the same thing in 2025, and rates didn't fall. The housing market is rewarding patience in some ways. Listing prices are down 2.4% year over year for the seventh straight month, and it is not rewarding the kind of patience that began 3 years ago. The hidden tax in your shopping cart matters a lot. As inflation in 2026 has two engines, and we need to name both of them. The first is the Iran war and its energy shock. The second is the sweeping tariff regime put in place by the Trump administration, which significantly raised import taxes on goods from a wide range of trading partners. According to analysis from economists and at Stanford's Institute of Economic Policy Research, the best available evidence shows that more than 50% of tariff costs have been passed through to American consumers, meaning when the government charges to a tariff on imported goods, businesses pass more than half of the cost directly to the people buying those goods. Goldman Sachs projected the current tariff regime would raise inflation by approximately one full percentage point between the second half of 2025 and the first half of 2026. Uh, According to Stanford Institute for Economic Policy Research 2026, sweeping tariffs do more harm than good. In addition to raising consumer prices, they raise production costs for domestic producers. A manufacturing paradox as far as concerns one of the stated goals of the tariff policy was to revive American manufacturing. The evidence suggests that goal has not been achieved, at least not yet. Manufacturing employment actually declined last year, dropping 68,000 jobs. And the reason is structural. Roughly half of United States imports are inputs into domestic production. When you tax those inputs, you raise cost for American factories, not just for importers. Farmers are feeling a specific and acute version of this problem: fertilizer costs, driven up by the disruption of global supply chains during the Iran conflict have risen sharply. The $11.1 billion in emergency firm assistance requested by the White House as part of its Iran war supplemental funding package was a direct response to that pressure. Farm level wheat prices are up by 31.2% year over year. Overall, farm input costs have risen at rates not seen since the supply chain crisis of 2022. The people growing America's food are being squeezed at precisely the same time that American families are stretching to afford it. The Fed's impossible position. At the center of the American economy, right now sits the Federal Reserve, and the Fed is in one of the most uh, difficult positions it has faced in years. After hiking interest rates 11 times between March 2022 and July 2023 to bring post-pandemic inflation under control, the Fed cut rates three times in late 2025 before pausing as of mid-June 2026. The federal funds rate target ranges standards at 3.50 to 3.75%, and it has been held there throughout the first half of the year. Now, new Fed Chair Kevin Walsh, who replaced Jerome Powell in this role, faces a dual mandate that is pulling in opposite directions. Inflation at 4.2% is well above the Fed's 2% target, which argues for keeping rates high or even raising them again. But the unemployment rate at 4.3% with long-term unemployment rising argues for cutting rates to support workers and businesses. Why the cut cannot cut? Why the Fed cannot cut and why that hurts? To answer this question, here what that means in plain term for ordinary Americans. As long as inflation stay elevated, driven by energy costs and tariffs, the Fed is unlikely to cut interest rates. That means the 6.5% mortgage rate stays at 6.5% or higher. Credit card interest rates stay elevated, auto loan rates stay high, student loan refinancing costs remain punishing. Every form of borrowing that Americans depend on to make major life purchases is more expensive, and it will stay that way until inflation comes down. President Trump has repeatedly pressurized the Fed to cut rates. The Fed has so far resisted that pressure, viewing its independence as essential to its credibility. The tension between the White House and the White House and the Federal Reserve over interest rate policy is one of the most consequential economic storylines of the year, and its resolution will directly affect the financial uh, lives of millions of American households. Looking ahead, the three variables that will shape the second half of the 2026. The first one is the Iran peace deal and energy prices. The single biggest variable in the American economy for the rest of 2026 is whether the U.S.-Iran peace negotiation succeeded. The 60-day memorandum of understanding clock is running. It is if a final deal deal is reached and the Strait of Hormuz is fully and reliably reopened, oil prices could fall further. If negotiations collapse and conflict resumes, energy prices could spike again. Taking inflation, mortgage rates, and household budgets with them, the Swiss stocks are not just a foreign policy story; they are an economic story. Second point is the Federal Reserve's next move. The next Federal Reserve meeting is the key monetary policy event of the summer. If the latest CPI data, which showed inflation accelerating to 4.2% in May, causes the Fed to signal that rate cuts are off the table for the foreseeable future. Markets will respond. Mortgage rates could rise further, and the housing market freeze will deepen if energy prices fall enough to bring inflation back down toward 3%. The Fed might find a path of cutting rates by year end, which would be the single most immediately felt economic relief for American families in 2026. Third factor is the 87.6 billion supplemental and the deficit. Congress is now debating the White House's request for 87.6 billion in supplemental spending, mostly for costs, on top of a defense budget that already represents a 50% increase over prior years. The Congressional Budget Office projects that the current fiscal trajectory adds trillions to the national debt over the coming decade. Economists at Stanford warn that rising deficit and debt pose growing risks, particularly in an environment where interest rates are elevated and the historical relationship between growth and deficit reduction has broken down. The size of the national debt matters not just abstractly. By practically higher deficits tend to keep interest rates higher for longer, and for means the cost of every American mortgage, car loan, and credit card is affected. What the numbers mean for real people. To answer this question, let's bring it back to where we started. Not the charts, but the kitchen table. The American economy in June 2026 is one of the profound contradictions. Employers are hiring 172,000 jobs added in May, beating expectations, and yet the workers taking those jobs are watching their real wages fall because prices are rising faster than their paychecks. And the unemployment rate is 4.3%, not catastrophic, and yet long-term unemployment is rising, and the labor participation rate is at its lowest in the 5 years. Inflation is at 4.2%, the highest since 2023, driven by a war that is now in a fragile ceasefire. The Federal Reserve is holding rates steady, which means the 30-year mortgage rate stays near 6.5%, which means the housing market stays frozen, which means millions of younger Americans cannot buy their first home. Food prices are up, gas prices are up, utilities are up, and wages, while growing, are not growing fast enough. Um, None of this is inevitable. Energy prices have already started to ease as Iran negotiation progress. Inflation forecasters project the annual rate could fall back toward 2.2% by 227 if the peace deal holds. The job market is showing genuine resilience, and housing inventory is slowly, carefully improving. But the path from where we are to where American families need to be is not short, and it runs directly through the policy decisions being made right now in Switzerland and at the Federal Reserve and on Capitol Hill. We will keep watching those decisions and reporting on what they mean for for your life, your budget, and your community. So I am Dr. Ejaz. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned with us for more updated news analysis on our daily households and on the community of USA family. So take care of yourself and take care of your channel AFK Newsroom. Till tomorrow, take care. Goodbye.